Calling the meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. This is a business meeting that will also contain a public hearing. And I'd like first to ask Clerk Perillo to call roll call, please.
Mayor Shepro.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Kasay.
Present.
Trustee Laux.
Present.
Trustee Biondo.
Present.
Trustee Giuliano.
Here.
Attorney Moran.
Present.
I, of course, am present. Madam, I confirm that we have a quorum.
Thank you. On our agenda, we have first a presentation by our senior auditor, Chris Reno of Cullen and Danowski. I would like to ask Chris to hold back for a second because I'd like to start our public hearing first, just a little switch of the agenda, just so that anyone who is here for the public hearing on the stop signs on Scraggy Hill Road, so we can get that order of business over to the side and then resume with the rest of our agenda. Is that okay with everybody?
Sounds good. Yep.
Any concerns, Rebecca? Okay, great, okay. We have noticed a public hearing to obtain the views of residents, views and comments to consider enacting a proposed local law that would enable 2 stop signs to be put up on Scraggy Hill Road at the request of, at the sort of request to contain some of the traffic issues that are being reported by the residents in that area, concerns about safety and speeding, blowing stop signs and circumventing the speed tables there. So there are speed tables on either side of the roadway at 2 different locations. They don't go across the roadway, so they really don't have any effect on speeding cars who just speed around the traffic, the tables, speed tables, traffic tables, speed tables. So that said, Attorney Moran, would you mind explaining the process behind this law?
Sure, Mayor. Prior to that, we'll take a motion to open the public hearing by the board.
A motion to open the public hearing?
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Mayor, that being said, the public meeting, a public hearing on this proposed local law is not open. As the mayor eloquently stated, this code amendment adds a stop sign to the corners on Scraggy Hill Road at the request of citizen complaints as a traffic calming measure and to ensure safety and traffic calming in the area. All stop signs in the village are located in the code at Chapter 245 of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, Article 7. And in order to add a stop sign to the village, you have to go through this process of putting it in the code via local law, which is the process we're going through.
Okay, so the hearing is open, and we'd like to invite public comment now. So when you'd like to make comment, you can come up and state your name and your address, and make sure the green light is flashing. Name and address.
Yep.
Is it on?
There you go.
Good? Okay. Ray DeBias, 1 Village Manor Court, Port Jefferson. As most of you all know that I'm chair of the planning board. I'm also a licensed professional engineer in New York State. I'm also a nationally certified professional traffic operations engineer, so I'm happy to comment on this. I know that people, when school is not open, people go around the speed tables that are in place on either side of the road, on the wrong side of the road, and just continue speeding through there. My first inclination would be to extend those speed tables because the New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law does not permit the installation of stop signs purely at crosswalks. They need to be at an intersection. Jumping ahead in the agenda tonight, I see on page, on the last page, it's page 3. No, it doesn't look like it's page 3. Page 3 of the local law, chapter 245, proposed local law. I see near the end, there's a north and south stop signs proposed on Scraggy Hill at the maintenance facility, which I believe is opposite the school at that
Correct.
point.
Mhm.
Technically, that's an intersection, but I did not know about this in advance, so I would have to check and see if you can actually put one at a driveway. Typically, they're only done at intersections of roadways. If it's a four-way intersection of two roadways and a driveway on the other side, on the far side of the intersection, you can do that. You can put a stop sign on the driveway to create order at the intersection. But you know, if that's not permissible by New York State law, which is referred to in the New York State Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a supplement to the Federal Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is about a 3-inch thick document of what you can do on roadways. And the whole purpose of that is if you drive anywhere, technically in the United States, you're going to see the same signs. You know what to do throughout the country, because most states follow the manual. So I can check on that. Sorry, I don't have that information available right away. But if that's not permissible at a driveway, even though it's a public driveway, so to speak, because it's village, I would recommend extending the speed tables, provided that the Department of Public Works I know they're aware of it, but when it snows, they can get torn up by the plows, and if you have private contractors coming, they need to be aware of it, so that when they plow the road in the winter, they don't tear up the speed tables. And if there's no complaints from emergency services, because in the past, I've been involved in a project where an ambulance company was dead set against any type of speed table, because they said, what if we're injecting someone with a shot and we cross the speed table? I mean, I don't know if you've had any complaints either from the fire department or ambulance, but that was the type of comment you could get on that. So I'm sure I confused you enough and you have questions.
No, I have a couple of answers.
Okay.
So we met with the fire department, and they indicated that the type of speed table that is installed there now, and that we are considering and probably will put across the roadway, are preferred by the fire department. They present no issue. It's the type of speed table that is located down on the bottom of Brook Road and Caroline Avenue Field, that those two speed tables, those are the ones that when they're riding, they tend to avoid that roadway if they need to respond. So we did clear that issue with the fire department. They were fine with it. And the type of material that the speed tables that exist there now is the type of material that is more easily repaired than any other. So it's preferred by the highway department as well. So yes, we are definitely considering and have priced out those speed tables for installation. One issue that is still present is that there is a clearance between the speed bump and the fire hydrant, between the fence and the fire hydrant, that people still use to circumvent that. And that is school district property, so we're talking to them about how to address that particular circumvention. So I thank you. That's an interesting law that I was not familiar with, or was even our public works superintendent wasn't familiar with, and that's tough to stump him. So when do you think we can find?
I think at this point he made his public comment.
Yep.
And that's what this is, public comment. We'll leave as far as the law goes, in the interest of public safety, the research was done that this stop sign is necessary at that entrance. It's not a pure crosswalk, as if you're saying. If this is truly a matter of public safety, I would advise the board to hear public comment, weigh it, and make your decision whether or not you want to approve it or table it at the end.
Thank you.
Right, if it's permissible to install a stop sign at that intersection with the maintenance facility, that would be fine. Because people do go around the speed bumps, but to think that somebody's gonna go through a stop sign and around a speed bump at the same time, I mean, that's just, I mean, I think fewer people would do that. But
Okay.
that's my-
Does anyone else have questions or
Not for Ray.
comment?
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
My name is Stella Cohen. I live at 111 Scraggy Hill Road, actually just behind Mr. Diaz. Where our house is situated, there is a stop sign because ours is the house with the driveway. Just last week, I asked my daughter to go out and have a look at what was going through that stop sign, and she videoed an Optimum truck that literally blew through at probably 30 miles an hour. That's only one of them. That happens all the time. The stop sign's a wonderful idea. I have no objection to this motion whatsoever, but it's paying lip service to a problem you're not going to fix with a stop sign. We have lived in that house for 22 years, and numerous cars go through it, mainly young drivers or younger women trying to get somewhere in a hurry. I would respectfully ask the board, in addition to considering this motion, to also table a motion at a future date for speed cameras. The stop sign is useless without enforcement. Either a speed camera or a police officer from Suffolk County or for code enforcement at random intervals. People often think the stop sign doesn't apply because school's not in session. It absolutely applies. There's always children going across the road, using the playground, going to summer school. There's even just regular cars having business within the school itself. So please, a speed camera to be tabled, a motion for that, and if not that, then certainly the police officers every so often. I do believe, lastly, that there is New York State funding available for installation of speed cameras in school zones only, not regular towns, but certainly in school zones. Thank you.
I think Suffolk County.
Thank you.
Suffolk County banned speed cameras? No? They just opted not to put them in the, Nassau did the school zones.
Excuse me, Charmaine Famularo. I live on 805 Chambers Court, just south of the elementary school. And the safety of the students throughout there has always been paramount concern for everyone in the neighborhood. I believe, Lauren, at the May 1st business meeting, you made a really great point about traffic studies, engineering reports, that kind of stuff for best practices in regarding to this. So do we have that study? Will that be made public? Are we going to do an engineer report regarding that?
Was this run by,
When we were talking about
ma'am,
Brook Road.
ma'am, excuse me one second, I advise, this is public comment, please make your comment. And the board will address it during the board's deliberation of this local law, whether or not it wants to proceed with or without, or whether or not we have that study you're speaking of.
All right, well, the discussion was during Brook Road, which is on the other side of the high school, middle school. So I would think that's like an apples comparison, and I'm looking forward to being able to get my eyes on those studies. And Chief's study, his survey that he does, that's always very informative as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ernie Geiger. I reside at 716 Pine Tree Court, and I've been there a resident for 45 years. So I've watched the school evolve, and I think that it might be a really good idea to put this aside and have a traffic specialist take a look at the signage that's there now and the amount of usage of that road and how it's used and when, because that road tends to be a disaster several times a day. During the week, when the parents drop off their children, that road becomes unmanageable. People do three-point turns in front of the school over a double yellow line. They do U-turns. They park on both sides. They double park. They throw their doors open. They let their children run across the road unescorted. It's a nightmare. Somebody really needs to look at it. I think what you're looking at now is the tip of the iceberg, and I really don't think that stop signs are going to do any good at this point because there is a crosswalk there. There's only one crosswalk from the administrative parking lot to the maintenance facility, which of course is the ball field and where the kids go to play. And that's fine. One crosswalk. A crosswalk under New York State law connotates that as a vehicle approaches it, it has to stop if someone is about to cross the crosswalk or is in the crosswalk. Now, I don't know if anyone knows, but have there been any accidents between vehicles and perhaps other pedestrians at that crosswalk that these stop signs would mitigate? I don't know. But you've got a speed bump guarding the crosswalk, you've got a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit guarding the crosswalk, and I fail to see what stop signs are going to do that all those measures can't. A crosswalk is a crosswalk. You are obligated. If you had a policeman there and he saw you blow a crosswalk with somebody trying to get through it, you're going to get a good ticket, as good as a stop sign. Part of the frustration of many of the residents is that a stop sign, which you have two now, one of which is completely ridiculous because as you approach the school going north to south, the first stop sign you come to is for the entrance for the roundabout for the school. Anyone who wants to go into that roundabout, if there were no stop sign, they would just go through it. Anybody who's going to proceed straight would just go straight. What's the stop sign about? Nobody's coming out of that driveway. It's only an entrance. It's only wide enough for an entrance. Coming around the other side of the roundabout is the exit. Now, there is a stop sign on the school property that people who want to exit confront. So they must yield to people on Scraggy Hill, which makes sense because they're entering a road, a very active road, with cars and buses and pedestrians. The stop sign on the east side of the road, by that exit, there's another stop sign, which stops traffic on Scraggy Hill that is heading north. I don't really believe that stop sign is necessary. That's the main road. The traffic entering out of the school onto Scraggy Hill has a stop sign. They're the ones that should yield. The frustration of the residents is that you have stop signs that don't make sense. You've got speed bumps that are there 365 days a year. You've got a speed limit that's there 15 miles an hour. That's always there. And now you want to put up stop signs. Stop signs, additional stop signs, won't do what you want to do. It won't accomplish it. An elevated roadway might accomplish it. That would make sure that the children are safe. But stop signs, not going to do it. And it just frustrates the residents more because they have to continually stop. And when there are other activities that are going on that are flagrantly violations of the law several times a day, I think somebody should look at it, look at the signage that's there, and make an intelligent decision instead of just throwing up two stop signs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Person in the back.
Come on up, Marilyn.
Everyone else. My name is Marilyn R. Damascos, and I live on Scraggy Hill Road, 601, and I concur 100% because we have seen a change. What's going on at Scraggy, there is a lot more traffic, and like he had just mentioned, do we really need more stop signs? We already have deterrents there for speeding. My kids are in their 30s, and we would walk to the school, to the playground, to the field, and I just remember everyone observing that area. So yes, we do need to look at what's going on, why all of a sudden do we have this influx of cars and children not paying attention. A crosswalk is a crosswalk, and therefore I think we need to do something, maybe something else other than more stop signs. And those that are parked in the school grounds, maybe they can't see the crosswalk. I don't know, but they make U-turns by Scraggy and Pine Tree. They make U-turns, and I don't know, that's an increase now in traffic. So, yes, like I said, I do concur with my neighbors. We do see it more often, and again, I think we need to study it more for the safety of the children that are now attending the schools and the programs. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Do we have any additional?
One more thing to say, based on 805 Chambers
Can you
Court-
state your name, please, and your
I-
address?
I am.
Mayor, I just wanted to advise the board during public comment on a local law like this, you get one chance to speak, otherwise.
It's
we're-
okay,
we're run-
Charmaine
I
can
just
speak.
want to advise.
I hear you.
You know my name, 805 Chambers Court. Bar none, the most effective thing that I have seen through my 20 years there is the security guard that they have placed there during, I believe it's pre-K drop-off. Every rule is followed when that security guard is there. Just wanted to give that.
Thank you. Ryan Walker.
Good evening, Ryan Walker, 721 Pine Tree Court. Speaking on behalf of, or as a resident, I appreciate the comments of my fellow residents, and I agree. And I only want to comment on the crosswalk, because that's the only thing at issue right now. Everything else can be addressed later. Unintended consequences would be putting stop signs in there and having traffic patterns that are already a mess when children at drop-off become even worse with everyone doing U-turns. I'm not against them. I just think the unintended consequences are you're going to make a bad situation worse. It's already a violation to go around those speed bumps. It's a violation not to yield to people in the crosswalk. I think the solution for the short term is to contact the Suffolk Police Department and try to get a sporadic police presence in the area to write tickets. As a police officer myself, I know when I am going into places where there are complaints, when we write tickets, unfortunately, most of the tickets go to the residents because they're there most of the time. In that zone, it's going to go to probably a lot of parents as well and employees of the school district. If that's what happens, that's what's happened, because we just need to get control of the situation on a road that is in rough shape. And I also worked as security for the school, and I give kudos to the security that is there now. They're doing a fantastic job. During arrival and dismissal, and any other time that the children are outside, there usually is adult presence, like myself. And from time to time, we will see what they call a New York stop, where they'll just roll through slowly and go through the stop sign. You don't generally see people just blowing through it when there are children and adults and cars all around. When you see those violations, it's usually not school hours. As far as the 15-mile-an-hour speed zone in that area, that should be a school speed zone where it's during school hours. And I believe that's 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on school days. That would be a little yellow sign that says school speed limit. The sign that's up there now, that is a speed camera, not a camera, but a radar that's taking data right now of all the cars coming through. It doesn't light up until you go 30 miles an hour or above. And I don't think a lot of people know that, because most of the cars that go through there keep it down below 30. I walk my dog, I jog on that road, I see traffic all the time. That sign hardly ever goes and appears 30 miles an hour or more. But I've had people ask me, is it 30 miles an hour or is it 15 miles an hour? So a little clarification on the existing signage, I think, would go a long way to help the people that navigate that road as well right now. I'm not against the speed tables going all the way across. I think that's a fair idea, and that will definitely keep the people who are going around and circumventing that. Yes, they will go on to school property right at where that little drop off on the I believe it's the east side of the road that is at the field side, and the west side of the road where there's parking right now for handicap. Those are areas that they can go around, but with speed bumps on both sides of both lanes, I think they're gonna hit one of those bumps. So I think that's a reasonable ask, and I just don't see where putting the stop signs in now are going to accomplish the goal that you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Charles Brock. I live at 307 Myrtle Avenue in Port Jefferson. My sister-in-law has owned a house on Pine Tree Court for the past 8 years. And since she travels internationally, I'm the de facto maintenance man. So I drive on Scraggy Hill Road sometimes 4 or 5 times a day. And I really don't see the speeding that's being alleged. As a matter of interest, Suffolk County the past few years has had an unmarked car, usually parked in that maintenance driveway, with a speed gun. And they generally do that 2 or 3 weeks before schools open. And I have yet to see them pull over anybody for speeding. And as far as stop signs go, if they're unable or unwilling to enforce the speed limits, then how are they going to enforce the stop signs? There's even less likelihood that you're going to see stop signs enforced. As far as the speed bumps go, the western speed bump is avoided uniformly by people who live in the area. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Every time it rains, there's a giant flood that goes all the way around that speed bump. In the winter, that's an icy lake, and it's big, and people do not want to drive on to that ice. And every time it gets plowed, that speed bump gets torn up. And I have seen people lose their tires because when the speed bump gets torn up, the rubber part which forms the speed bump is gone, but the spikes that hold it to the ground still remain. And they will tear through a tire very quickly. So there's a rationale for why people go around that bump. It's a matter of habit. The habit becomes they get used to driving around it every time it's flooded. As far as enforcement goes, school security does a phenomenal job. They are out there anytime that there are students anywhere, anytime when they're going to the athletic fields, they're controlling traffic. And I just think the addition of stop signs is going to make their job more difficult. When they're there, they've got control. And they slow people down, they stop traffic when necessary, and I just don't see that the stop signs are going to be a help. In my opinion, they are basically, you're proposing a solution in search of a problem that doesn't really exist. And I agree with all the other comments of people who live in that area. As far as speeding at night, people don't even speed at night because there's so many deer in that area. Anybody that lives in that area knows that there's constant deer crossings going both ways in the evening. So people don't speed. And I just don't see it unless if there's really a problem, then Suffolk County should be able to enforce it. And if they can't enforce speed, they're not going to enforce the stop signs. It just doesn't happen that way. And so I'm opposed.
I can tell.
And I just don't. And as far as extending the speed bump, you know, those rubber speed bumps are, I mean, they may be preferable to the ambulance company and the fire department, but they're not really a great solution where you have snow plowing. It makes it extremely difficult. So as far as extending it goes, there's not really an issue. People do not drive around those speed bumps when school is in session. They just don't.
Thank you.
at 722 Pine Tree Court. I agree with all of my neighbors, stop signs are not the solution. How about a school crossing guard during school hours? And there's no reason to have these stop signs when school is not in session. There's no reason to have all these crazy limits on the weekends and summer. It just makes more sense if you're worried about the kids to have school crossing guards. They work, they'll enforce whatever, they'll stop cars. The U-turns are crazy. I don't even go that way anymore because during school, on and off, drop off and pick up, it's crazy. I just go all the way around the other way, which is also a nuisance, but it's not right. And the speed bump's not gonna help it. We've already got 2 stop signs, 2 speed bumps, that speed table thing, and all the signs that say 15 miles an hour, which should only be in school session, not all the time, because it's not necessary all the time. And yeah, most of us don't speed. I'm terrified of the deer, so I never do, because I don't need my car hit by some dumb animal. There's too many of them. You guys should do something about that too, but that's a different story.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, they should. I've got some birth control in Salt Lakes.
Do we have any other public comments?
I actually tried that.
Okay.
Motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
I move to close the
Public hearing.
Stan Lauk's moved to close the public hearing. Do we have a second? Trustee Cassay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you for being here. I know we made a special effort to invite everyone by putting notifications around in the neighborhood to let you know this was actually happening. I hope that worked. And I'm really glad to. Sorry?
It wasn't enough notice a few days ahead of time.
Well, you're here and we're so happy that you are. It was enough notice for some of you, so we're really happy that you're here, because your feedback is very important. So thank you. Okay. So the question is, next is to leave it open or to vote?
That's, you close the public portion of the meeting
Mhm.
and the hearing, generally what would happen would be a vote on that motion. But if you're not prepared to vote on that motion, and I don't see it on the agenda, so there's no reason to table a vote that's not there.
Are we invited to discuss?
You guys could discuss, yes?
Yeah. Let's let's get a motion out there first, if we're going to discuss.
Does one have to motion to discuss?
Yeah, motion, well,
To deliberate.
well, you can deliberate now.
Yeah.
And then after your deliberation, a motion should be made on what you want to do after your deliberation. You don't want to put the cart before the horse.
I thought you were always discussing about the motion that was on the table, but I'm happy to do whatever everybody's wanting to do. So do you want to start the discussion, Rebecca?
Sure, I have a list, so I guess we could just ping pong around. It's very enlightening to hear from the residents of the area.
Agreed.
They are, as the public is always the eyes on the ground there, and so, but in addition, and something some of the public asked for, I know that we've gotten reports from Suffolk PD on if there were, how many violations in a certain area, or if there were any incidents, people being hit by cars. As a trustee voting on this, I'd love to see that information to see if, or maybe the information is Suffolk PD hasn't been stationed there. So whatever history we can get from Suffolk PD, I think would be enlightening there. Have we discussed this with Hayduck at all, the Hayduck engineers who are currently working on the Complete Streets, sort of Safe Streets walkability study for the village? Because I know that was one of the roads that we have highlighted for them to look at.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Whether it's Hayduck or another engineer or some way to speak.
Is that part of their?
They're gonna.
When do they commence?
They've already commenced. They are currently looking, they're cataloging all of the current conditions and signs of village roadways that are on the map. So that's phase one, and then phase two really is to create sort of a matrix of the different roads and prioritize and how difficult roads will be to have some sort of complete streets aspect to them. So whether it's you know, whether a sidewalk is the thing or a green painted stretch that says, you know, this is where pedestrians and cyclists go. Anyway, that's so sort of whether this can fall under their current contract or be an addition, or we look to another source. It sounds to me like the U-turns were discussed by almost every resident that came up, and that sounds more like a holistic planning issue. Like if people are making U-turns, I don't, you know, that sounds like there's a traffic flow issue there. So having a traffic engineer not just look at the one crosswalk, but the whole area, and whether the school does that, the village does that, or there's a collaboration. You know, not just focusing on one crossing, but it just seems like cars are kind of doing whatever they want to there, and it's a
Same issue
rodeo.
at Old Post Road
Yeah.
and Dark Hollow.
Right.
Same exact issue.
Yep. So, you know, I would hope that there are engineer solutions to this, and or enforcement solutions, you know, to have regular postings or of Suffolk PD. I don't know, do we have cross guards? Or does the school district have cross guards there currently at all?
County has them,
The-
but not there.
I don't know about, I don't
There.
think
They have
I
them
don't
by
believe
the
so.
high school.
Yeah. So, and that would be
Those are county?
Those are county crossing guards.
by the high school.
Yeah, Main Street,
Yeah.
a block up,
Okay.
where the new traffic light is.
Sure. So I guess looking into whether or not.
Actually,
And
there's
CVS,
two, but the CVS, they
and
put one
Barnum.
finally at the CVS.
Right.
Main Street and Barnum
And does the school engage the county on asking for those crossing guards? Who is that conversation?
No,
with?
because Chief Owen has reached out to the district to see if what their relationship is with the crossing guards during the non-school season,
Mhm.
to see if we can access those crossing guards, maybe in the village,
Mhm.
just to get an idea, to start that process. But I don't think he's heard back from them.
Okay.
So, but it's something to look into, I think. It's a good idea.
Sure, because
Um,
it sounds like security is currently doing maybe some of the work of crossing guards, but if that's not their main purpose, and they're just sort of, you know, wrangling.
And
their-
school property up at Scraggy is a little different than school property down at the high school, down
Right.
at Liberty.
Sure,
So it's a
sure,
whole, it's a
sure.
different construct, so,
Yeah. That was most of my notes.
thank you. Anybody else have comments?
Yeah, I think, you know, we should check the point that Ray brought up is a good one. I think, you know, before we proceed, we should definitely see if this is something that we can do. So, you know, either ask Ray or Hyduck or somebody to look into that to see if,
Or Steve Gallagher could look into
Okay,
it, I
yeah.
think, yeah. You
I'll-
wanna
I'll
ask
bring
Steve
it-
to look into it?
Yes, I'll bring it up to Steve.
We met with Suffolk Police last week. We had a good walking tour around the village. This was gonna be in my report, but, I'll mention it now. That, the leadership from the 6th Precinct came into Port Jeff and met with us, and we talked about the issues around the schools and looking at enforcement. And actually up at Brook Road, they have stationed a car. I mean, Chief Owen reported on that at the last meeting. They've put a car up there during the week intermittently, so as not to demonstrate a pattern. So they had caught people speeding, residents, and issued a warning. So it's not punitive, it's just, hey, a reminder. But we've asked that they do the same thing up at the Scraggy area, so that, and also we installed the traffic, the speed table, the speed trailer to capture the speeding. And I think it was, Ryan, if Ryan's still here, I don't see him, but I think it was set to I think we talked about it being set to 15 miles an hour. But actually definitely 15 miles an hour during the school year. because we're going to put that radar trailer at different locations in the village. And when school starts up again in September, we'll have it up at Brook Road for 2 weeks to collect the data up there. And then we'll do the same thing over on Scraggy Hill where it currently is. So we are collecting the data on Scraggy Hill Road right now. So we'll know if people are speeding or not. Did Chuck leave? So we're just getting reports from people who live on that roadway in real time that there is speeding, that they're out blowing the stop sign. So yes, we have asked Suffolk to sort of start that enforcement program. And we asked the school district to ask Suffolk County Police to enforce that that speeding enforcement program up there as well. And that would be very helpful, because my understanding is the last time the police really dispatched cars up there was when the resource officer and the principal requested it of Suffolk County Police. So can't hurt to ask, and it can't hurt for the public to ask as well. So.
How quickly can we get so it wasn't clear to me, what material is being proposed for the extended speed table? Is it the rubber material or?
The same, yeah, the
okay.
material that's up there already,
Okay.
yes.
And so and those are there all year round, or are those removed in the winter?
All year round,
Okay,
all year round. They can be removed,
yeah,
but they're there all year round,
yeah.
as currently implemented.
Are they ever removed during the winter time for, during plowing?
Not that I
season?
know, not that I know of.
No.
Did Steve say
Yeah,
that they
we asked Sid
removed?
about that, he said no,
Yeah.
they're there year-round.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is that because it's the way it's always been done, or somewhere in my mind, I've heard of those, the rubber ones, a feature being that you would remove them during the off-season. And then, because now we're hearing that there's also an ice issue associated with them. I'm just,
yeah, that was new, that was the first I'd heard
Yeah.
of that, so that was interesting. But,
just.
it's a good conversation for DPW to have with
Mhm.
DPW to ask if they've seen that. I haven't, but
The one common thing that most people talked about was when security was out there, things seemed to be under control.
Mhm.
So perhaps we approach the school more
mhm.
and maybe see what we can do with that crossing guard during school hours.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stan.
Seems to work in a lot of other neighborhoods.
I think that would go a really long way. Yeah, I mean, for me, the question of whether or not this is permissible by New York state law would have me want to table a vote on this, as well as all these other questions.
For me, the feedback from the residents about the stop signs is enough to go on versus even pursuing New York state law. But, so I would go either way. I could vote or table it.
I table it. That's my feeling.
I agree.
Because that will impact your decision whether or not they're permissible.
I think.
Well, there is no vote on the agenda as it currently sits.
Right.
So if we heard the public comment and we're getting feedback from various entities within the village, whether or not the vote is calendared in the future or not, well, I guess will depend on that information.
I guess one could always move to vote.
You could seek
Yeah.
to vote now, or you
Sure.
could seek to vote later. I mean, generally, the way that it would set up is you have your a resolution to open the public hearing, resolution to close the public hearing, and then usually the next agenda item is a resolution to adopt the local law. It's not on the agenda, so consider it tabled because it seems to be the intent of the board anyway.
So would a motion to table be in order?
No.
Were you saying that, based on what you heard, that you would turn down the stop signs?
Yes. If I can be so blunt,
I
yeah, yep.
would go along with that, too.
Do we have one more vote?
I think for me, not,
No, go ahead.
not precluding, there's, I don't see the harm in holding it open, collecting more public comment, potentially, until the next Board of Trustees meeting. The signs won't get put in the meantime, and if in the interim we have new information, it's still open to, you know, when the board could have the option of returning to it, and otherwise, if there's information either that says, that supports turning it down, it's as easy as, you know, a vote at the next meeting, but.
Again, I'll advise the board, there's no vote on this agenda.
Right.
So, I mean, you could very easily do the opposite, which is if the board wants to vote on it at the next meeting to add it as an agenda item, and if there's a consensus for that, so be it, and if not, public feedback worked, and the board, there's nothing to act upon.
Okay, so let's move on.
See what I'm saying?
I do see, no, I do see what you're saying, it's just,
Right.
yeah, that's interesting.
So basically, what I'm saying is, you would need a motion to add a vote. A motion to add a vote to table something that's not on the agenda. So you want to add a vote just to table a vote.
Right.
It's not there.
Right.
It's not on the agenda. Yeah. Counterproductive.
I think we're all saying the same.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Our next agenda item is the presentation by our independent auditor of Cohen and Danowski, the firm, and Chris Reno, who is our senior auditor representing. I just wanted to give a little brief description as to why I asked Chris to come tonight to present our audit from when the fiscal year ended in May of 2022. I've been spending a lot of time in the Treasurer's Department recently, as became evident when last meeting I asked to table the warrants that were presented, because I was looking through the warrants. The warrants are the documents that we use to approve or not payments that are invoiced by vendors and other service providers and whatnot. So we had a stack of warrants about this big. They were the vouchers, the checks, and the backup invoices that I had some questions about. And by the time I received them on Friday, before the meeting on Monday, I did not have enough time to go through every single one of them. There were probably over 100. And so when I had questions about the first few, I made the decision on Monday not to have them be included in the consent agenda, and to hold back and really take a closer look at all the invoicing, the process, to see whether or not our procurement policy was being followed closely or at all, to see if POs had been issued, which in many circumstances they were not, and to look at some of the detail behind and the receipts behind some of the purchases that were being made. So those warrants were tabled, and then we started looking at, prior to that, we had been looking at the independent audit from the prior year. We received from Cohen and Danowski a copy of the audit report that was presented to the village treasurer and mayor on January 4th, 2023. And that report was addressed to the Board of Trustees. And the Board of Trustees, upon canvassing the current board members who were board members on January 4th, 2023, had not seen that report. We had not been issued that report, we did not see the report, and the report had gone to the OSC without the Board of Trustees reviewing it. So that is why when I received the report a few weeks ago, I took the copies, scanned copies of some of the documents and shared it with fellow board members and had them take a look at it. And we all, I think, agreed that we'd like sort of a summary from Chris on that to take us through the highlights and some of the issues that we're facing now so that we can move forward with the process being adjusted somewhat. So,
Mayor, before he takes the podium, I just want as we've discussed, Mayor, another flaw in the process was if you're going to use an outside audit firm, which the village does, once that's filed with the village clerk, the report, there needs to be a public notice that that report is available at Village Hall for anyone to come and review, and as far as I know, that hasn't happened either.
yes. Okay.
All right.
Chris?
Okay, I'm Chris Reno. I'm one of the 6 partners of Cullen Danowski. Primary purpose is to provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are relatively free of material misstatements, which they are. We issued the May 31st, 2022 audit back in January of this past year. You know, the process is at the end of the audit, we provide a draft, which is sent to the treasurer, and then we get signed representation from a board member, which was the mayor, and management, which was the treasurer, to issue the reports, and then we file with the controller's office. So that was all done back in, January, and got confirmation in February that everything was received because I deal with directly one of the people up at the controllers and had a couple of questions. So we know they did get all these reports and been issued. So basically what we do is we issue 5 reports altogether. So you got the main thing, which is your financial statement. We also issue a justice court financial statement. And then we have some communication letters. We'll talk about if there was any deficiencies we needed to note. Other recommendations, which don't warrant what we call a deficiency. And just a communication to the board as far as our audit process and any proposed journal entries. So you received those 5 reports back. Well, they were issued back in January, okay? So as far as the highlights themselves, I do like a trend report. So, I try to go back 5 years and, it's been looking positive as far as, the fund balance has been growing. So, the unassigned fund balance, which is what's left over after everything's been done for the year. You actually have a balanced budget now. In the past you were using some of your existing fund balance to fund the budget. Right now you're pretty much at a break even. The revenues are equaling expenditures and you're not really hitting into that fund balance, and you have a positive outcome. So it's been slowly growing. So, if we went from like 600,000 to like 1.8, so financially, as far as general fund goes, it's in the positive direction, and that's basically reflected, in the back. The last thing you'll see is a report with 4 columns like this. Okay, so basically on the revenue side, your final budget versus your actual difference $1,800. So you're like right on target with your revenues as far as what you projected that you were going to collect. And then on the flip side, the expenditures, you're underexpended the budget by about $62,000, which means you have a realistic budget. We've had some places where their surplus is like, underspending their budget by $600,000 or something like that, which means they're just throwing a budget there and not monitoring it. So the past couple of years, it's been, a positive as far as that goes. So that's pretty much the financial statements as we go. You have some other funds too. You got community development, the country club, the capital projects, which is considered your governmental funds. Okay, capital projects. My manager on the account, went back a few years, and we were able to bring it up to date, so, we were comfortable as far as the money's coming in and out every year, but now we kind of got a handle as far as the project through and through. So, so sometime we'll sit down and discuss that in more detail. I provided a reconciliation report earlier today, and basically, so that's the audit for 2022. We've already commenced the audit for May 31st, 2023. We were physically here last week, so we're in a pretty decent shape as far as this year's audit as we go. And we're not finalized yet. We're still waiting for some information from outside sources like employee retirement system, things like that. And right now, it's also positive outlook. I think we're fund balance is increasing an additional $25,000 in this current fiscal year. Okay, so the process is that we come in 2 phases or 1 phase and do the audit itself. Then we need time to get the reports together, and then they'll be provided in draft. And we discussed that direct communication to send it directly to you, and you're correct. So we'll get that to you once we have everything drafted.
Wait, what will you get directly to us?
The drafted reports.
Okay.
So to make sure, instead of, because procedure sometimes is that we just send it to the treasurer and then takes from there. From my understanding, it seems like the whole board did not receive these reports in the past. So, so
It's a pretty fair understanding.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Do we have to remedy the public notice?
At some point, we can discuss that. The answer is yes, we should.
Yeah, usually the process would be is after it's approved, that you just say,
Yeah.
They're available.
It's 10 days from receipt, right?
Again, I'm not sure that it was ever approved,
Oh,
Right.
because the board never voted on it, because the board never received it.
got it.
Right, yeah, so, so
We're
the
playing
audit
a little
process.
bit of catch-up here, I don't mean to interrupt,
No,
so we're
that's
just
fine.
playing a little bit of
Okay,
catch-up.
got it.
I think that it was important, and I know the mayor, in our discussions, thought it was important for the representatives from Condon House to come give a little report on it, so you guys could digest it, see it, and then decide the adoption of it, and
Right. Yeah.
procedurally, we're gonna have to just play catch-up.
Mhm.
Yeah, so basically, I was just asked to come here to just talk about the audit from the prior year, which has already been issued and done.
Got it.
And we're
But no
already-
harm in putting it up now, just for.
Just
No,
want to make sure that we're not out of compliance.
Right. We are trying to bring it back into compliance.
right. Okay, so anyway, so that was the audit process, so we finalized back in January. And like I said, we got a really good start this year. We're about 70% done, we'll say, with this year's audit. So, so once we get those other information, we can finalize the reports and get drafts to the board, review them, call any questions all year round. Doesn't have to be like, we issue the report, see you next year. We're right up the road, a couple
Chris.
miles away. So, so I figured I'd just come down real quick and just briefly, discuss that, as far as the prior year audit.
Anything from previous audits, including the 2022, that we need to fix
Yes.
and deal with
Yeah, like.
going forward?
Yeah, like my primary concern, a few years back was, the fund balance in the country club was steadily trending to go into, the fund balance was being depleted. So
Deficit?
We got it down to about $100-some thousand. I got a history schedule for what we wanted to share with you. And, but that's been built up. We're discussing, green fees were increased a couple of years ago, which kind of remedied the issue. So.
What about inventory control?
We don't-
Depreciation of assets, those things?
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's the significant deficiency, which we call material weakness within the village. You're not the only ones out there, but you're supposed to have a periodically, an inventory of all your capital assets, have a capitalization threshold, and, have an outside appraisal company put these together for you, and then calculate depreciation. So since the village doesn't have that capital asset inventory, we're not able to provide the depreciation or, as far as that piece goes, of the capital assets. As far
Can you
as-
explain briefly to the lay people in the room, self-included, why that would be important to be able to talk about,
Well,
the depreciation of our assets?
Well, the depreciation is just to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's because GAAP, requires that, these financials have a government-wide financial, which is just a combination of all your governmental funds I discussed earlier. But then they want you to incorporate to have depreciation, treat it more like a corporate balance sheet as far as like your fiscal advisors and bond counsel. They're not too concerned with those statements, they're looking at your specific funds, which, like I said, financially, the trend is, you're in a positive direction the past few years. So that's excellent. And so basically, the only concern I had was, with this capital asset, also kind of take in consideration your capital projects fund, because you've got infrastructure, that's supposed to be included into your capital assets. So, so we don't have a complete inventory of that. So, I can, give you a list of a couple of different appraisal companies other villages utilize to, do research on that. And there was discussions that, potentially, your insurance carrier may be able to, fund that for you at no cost to the village, because they want
And this is
control.
important for insurance purposes too, so that
Exactly.
if something
That's what I
goes
was-
missing,
Mhm.
you know it's missing.
Right.
And so you can claim it and
Know what it's worth.
know what it's worth.
Right, yeah, and
Like buildings
Or if there was a
and,
catastrophe.
yeah,
Right.
right, yeah. 'cause,
computers and
right, and,
technology
like I
and,
mentioned, that, you could have different capitalization thresholds, one for financial reporting, call it 5,000, 10,000. But then for insurance purposes, you want that threshold to be low, maybe 500,000. So that way, in the insurance appraisal, you have all these, small assets in there for insurance coverages, like laptops and whatnot. As far as for the financial statement presentation itself, you don't really have to drill down that far. Just have a complete listing.
I mean, the country club in itself has assets that we need an inventory on.
Right. So,
So do lease vehicles are they in part of that? Like, do we put the golf carts and those do we register those as assets?
yeah, they're supposed to be assets unless they're being rented. So-
Well, they are.
Yeah.
They are.
So they're rented, so they
They're
wouldn't be on it,
leased,
'cause I know that's the case here. But, some places they have their own fleet, and in that case, yeah, it would be part of your assets. But since you rent it, that piece is not an issue here. Just
Mhm.
your other vehicles, and like I said, the computers, the furniture,
Mhm.
whatnot, that all needs to be, what the appraisal company will do is they'll come in and they'll inventory tag everything. So
Mhm.
you'll have a barcode to it, and that way you can track your assets.
Yes.
And then, at a minimum quarterly or annually, you would, acknowledge, fixed assets that are being disposed of, so there's a tracking of that.
Mm-hmm.
And how long were we deficient in this?
Since I've been doing the audit,
Forever.
which is, I think the first year we here was 2000,
15?
13, 14 maybe.
So it sounds like a fairly simple remedy for whether the clerk asks the insurance or, we put in an RFP.
The clerk has
I've already
reached
done
out to the insurance
Brilliant.
company already.
Yeah, and it's been a comment since day one,
Mhm.
and it's cited in the financial statements themselves, that there's a paragraph saying that, control over the fiscal inventory of your capital assets, and that we issue a separate letter addressing that deficiency.
Did we have this prior to 15, 13? Prior to your starting, we
Yeah,
had this
because,
inventory?
when we first got here, can we see your fixed asset schedule? We don't have one. It's like you just had numbers in the financial statement that was for,
Representing those assets.
yeah,
Allegedly.
how long ago, who knows? So that's always been, our one main comment, like I said, but, a few years back, there was also some issues, the trending of the fund balance, you know, at the country club. But that's remedied now, so, you know, general funds consistently been like an increase, so there was no real concern there either. So, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, taking care of, tracking your capital projects and making sure they're properly funded. So I know we, you know, have, you know, issued like 5.2 million in bands, which is part of the funding, which can get converted into, you know, a bond at some point. I think the total authorization is like 10 million. So you know, so there are funding sources to address this. You know, so once the projects are completed, then we cross that bridge. So anyway, so like I said, so yeah, so these reports were issued back in January. So I just came in tonight to just discuss that briefly, make sure that you have them. And like I said, we're in the process of finalizing the audit for this year. So you know, so once we get the rest of that information, I'll be able to put drafts together and send them to you to review, call questions. And we have another year under the belt.
Thank you for that presentation.
No, no problem.
I have one more question, though.
Yeah, sure.
So on the report entitled Adverse and Unmodified Opinions, there's a summary of opinions, and there are 5 different opinion units.
Yes.
Government Activities General Fund, Community Development Fund, Country Club Fund, and Capital Projects Fund. And all are unmodified except for the government activities being adverse.
Yes.
Is that,
That's what I was just discussing.
that's a reflection of the assets, the fixed assets?
Yes, because what happens is that you have your specific funds, and then there's a government-wide financial statement, which is, like I say, the combination of all the funds, but then it also brings in the debt and the capital assets and depreciation.
Okay.
So we have an adverse opinion on that one specific statement. So as far as the actual funds themselves, and what gets reported to the controller's office, as far as, you know, your annual update document, which is now called the annual financial report, that's fine. So it's just a matter of, you know, for
It's not all bad news?
Yes.
Okay.
This government
Okay.
accounting standards board requires these
Phew.
governmental funds.
All right.
And they don't really factor into, you know, like I said, the bond rating, your
Okay.
physical.
And we'll try to get that asset document done by deadline of the next.
Yeah, and I'll, like I said, you know, when I'm back in the office, I'll, you know, go through, get you a list of like 3 different companies that you can look into and just check with the insurance.
Will the
plan.
controller ding us on that if they do an audit?
Controller?
The state controller?
They come in and do audits, but,
Yeah.
you know.
We've
I mean,
requested one.
Yeah, I know you can request, but then, you know, they have a list.
List.
And basically, you know, they're, you know, honing in on, like, you know, areas where they haven't been getting reports
Okay.
from villages and whatnot, and, you know, then, you know, so, and then sometimes it's just specific, so a controller can come in and do an audit and just look at something specific, like with the court. That was an audit here, you know, a few years back, and they were just specifically just looking at the court processes, so, you know, but, you know, you could ask for a full blown audit. It might be a 3-year waiting period to have that completed. You know, you can always just contact them and say, you know, listen, we're doing administration, we'd like you to come in.
I think that's been done.
And then we can, you know, then we can assist, you know, help out.
Okay.
As far as being able to communicate with the controller and on behalf of the village.
So to confirm, nothing in the report is negative, has negatively or is at risk of negatively affecting the like the interest rates that the village has offered on PAMs or bonds, or is that not something?
Well, I did the research on the bond ratings. Supposedly you're AA3, which is like maybe the 5th one down of the 10, somewhere around. So
In the
so
middle
you're
of
not-
the
you're-
pack.
You're not like, you know, the B minus, I think, is the worst. You know, so you're not at that level.
They
But
don't-
you don't have
B-
triple
is the
A's.
worst.
B minus, that's a high standard, right? There's a lot of different variations of Bs and As.
Right.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I provided that when I was actually physically here last week on Thursday. And looked up, you know, she gave me the Moody's rating, and then I looked up to see where that fell on the scale.
Okay.
So,
I guess if there's any advice on how to bump us up?
Well, that would be the question for Munistat, which is your fiscal advisor. So you know,
Okay.
you call Mike or Noah, and they're the two main guys there that know really well.
So I want that
on those
quadruple
two.
A.
What?
Right, is quadruple A going up or down? I'm making a joke.
It's going up generally. Thank you,
I
Chris.
tried, I tried.
Any other questions
Yes,
for
one
Chris?
question. Chris,
Yes.
unappropriated fund balance. I guess you're looking at, it'll be close to $2 million by the time, what is, for village our size, budget our size, what should it be? What's the recommendation?
Well, they always say it should be like, when I talk to the controller, it's unofficial. They won't have any, and there's no guidance on it whatsoever. But, you know, they unofficially told me anywhere from 10 to 20% of your next year's budget, which you're well over. So you're in good shape as far as the fund balance goes. But like I said, I have a history spreadsheet if you want Ken to take a look at it. You know, just leave this with the total. So, you know, just,
And do we have copies of the report, or?
Yeah, they were, so yeah, just, we could just hand these out. So this one with all the columns is your general
Maybe.
fund history.
Don't know.
And this is the
I don't
history
know
on
if
the
he
country
handed
club.
me a copy,
Okay.
so
Good. These are all
thank you, Chris.
different copies. No, they're all the same.
They're all the same? All right. Chris, thank you so much.
no problem.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good night.
You too. Okay, next up, Sylvia, would you like to take us through the action items?
Yes, thank you. Resolution number 01-82123, resolution approving the minutes of the August 7th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting.
Motion.
Motion, trustee Biondo, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Just for clarification, resolutions number 02 and 03 are intrinsically tied, they go hand in hand, so that if 03 passes, the end date for 02 would be through September 6th. That having been said, resolution number 02-82123, resolution appointing village clerk Sylvia Perillo as interim treasurer.
Do we have a motion?
Point of inquiry, there's, throughout the agenda, there are personnel matters, you know, sort of hiring and different, you know, appointing. Is there an opportunity at any point to go into executive session to discuss personnel matter?
What's that? You can go into executive,
At
you
any
can make a
time.
motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters at any time.
I don't know, the typical procedure.
Say again?
I don't know what the typical procedure is for discussing.
These are appointments.
Appointments are public, so they.
Yeah,
there
they're
would be a
public.
reason and-
Sure.
So, right now, the treasurer position is vacant, because Mr. Don Pierce declined to accept the position, the appointment, based on personal and public reasons. And so, from there, we are hoping to appoint an interim treasurer, because we should have an interim treasurer until such time when the treasurer that we are appointing takes office. So, if there's more needed to discuss about that, I'm not sure.
It was a general question about throughout the agenda. I'm happy to make a motion for resolution number 2.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay.
May I ask for a roll call?
Oh, yes.
Thank you, thank you. Deputy Mayor Cassay?
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Laux?
Aye.
Trustee Biondo?
Aye.
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion
Resolu-
carries.
Thank you. Resolution number 3-82123, resolution approving the appointment of Stephen Gafka as treasurer of the Village of Port Jefferson at an annual salary of $111,706.62, effective September 7th, 2023. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second.
You second?
Do we have a discussion? All in favor?
Okay. I was just gonna say that I had a chance to speak to Mr.
Oh,
Gafka.
okay.
Yeah, he seems a ambitious young professional. One point of note that I really appreciated was he's been sitting on the Southampton community housing committee or board out there, and so I really appreciate that he can be bringing to the village a fiscal look at affordable housing to the village, which is I think something a strong point to bring forward, and I had a positive conversation with him.
Great. I will add that Mr. Gafka is currently the treasurer in the village of Greenport, where there are some complex financial operations in terms of there is a couple of enterprise accounts that he oversees, which include a marina that is owned by the village of Greenport and also a power company that is owned and operated by the village of Greenport. So he brings that skill set, and we're excited to have him bring that experience into helping us in the treasurer's office for the village of Port Jefferson. Okay, do we want to do roll call vote for this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor?
Aye. Oh, more discussion.
Yeah, I would just, have we discussed this with anyone else, other than any other candidates?
Yes, Don Pierce.
That's it?
That's it.
It's just that we've been through 5 treasurers in the last 10 years. And I get a little nervous about the situation.
That's why we're trying to bring in the best person possible.
Trustee Louds?
Yes.
Trustee Biondo?
Yes.
Trustee Giuliano?
Yes.
Mayor?
Confirmed.
Thank you. That passes 5-0, unopposed. Resolution number 482123, resolution approving a change in policy regarding the issuance of warrants to allow for the approval by the Board of Trustees of one warrant, one time per month, effective September 7th, 2023. May we have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Just
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, just a point of discussion. I think one of the things I saw when I got here was the board and your office, Sylvia, was on a treadmill, just preparing for the next board. And I think this will alleviate to give you more time and the mayor more time to do their duties.
That's
So
the
I think it's a good move.
Thank you. That's the expectation, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
And is this, we've checked with the vendors and we've been able to arrange that this will not incur late fees, or everyone's up to the schedule?
There are certain invoices that are paid as a matter of practice, months, at a certain time during the month in
Okay.
any case.
Sure.
Others that are problematic will be reached out to by the treasurer's office and or the clerk's office, because we
Yeah.
work in tandem,
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that they're aware of the new procedure, should it pass, and to ensure that the village does not incur fees.
Okay, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another measure we want to take is, and that we plan to take, is scaling down the use of credit cards, because we do use credit cards very often, and those are the vendors that incur late fees on a monthly basis at a percentage of interest that we don't need to incur, which we can avoid by creating a very diligent PO system. So there are POs issued to vendors such as, your retail vendors. They will accept POs. And so rather than use a credit card to purchase, we use a PO, so we don't necessarily incur the late fees. And then the other thing that we're looking at is if we, when we pay these vendors, there are some vendors we're paying twice a month, which seems redundant and not necessary, and an overuse, sort of an expenditure of effort by the treasurer's office. Pay these vendors once a month, and we'll be on time and intact, and maybe a little bit more ahead of the game. So those are two things that we're looking at doing.
Now, at the organization meeting, there's certain vendors, utilities, that we're allowed to pay. So
And
those will.
And those vendors are typically on ACH,
Mhm.
automatic withdrawal.
Right.
So those are paid.
So that won't stop that.
Correct.
Okay.
That doesn't change.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, roll call vote, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, aye.
Trustee Laux?
Yes.
Trustee Biondo?
Yes.
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes 5-0. Resolution 0582-123, resolution amending the policy involving the following titles: Mayor, Trustee, Village Clerk, Village Deputy Clerk, Village Administrator, Village Treasurer, and Village Deputy Treasurer with regard to health insurance. The previous policy had a waiting period of 3 months. There will be no such waiting period hereafter. May we have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Discussion. I anticipate discussion on this one.
We just get, maybe offer background?
Sure. So basically what we see with appointments of 1 year and 2 years that are required to wait 3 months for health insurance to kick in, basically is an onerous sort of burden on those employees because they will likely have to incur COBRA fees, which run up to $9,000 and some $10,000 in some family circumstances for potentially 9 months of service in health insurance coverage. So that was one aspect of this. Another is that the titles that we've identified are not civil service titles. They are not subject to the union contract, and that is where the coverage is described in the union contract. So in order to help attract some of the best candidates for these positions at a rate that is not necessarily burdensome to the village, we are looking to make this process smoother and more welcoming to these valued employees, staff members, and board members, honestly. So that's the background. If there's any
And it's not a policy that's foreign to other villages. A lot of villages have this policy.
correct, municipalities in general.
Yes.
Yes.
Any
Okay.
adverse effects? Any adverse effects to something like this? Someone comes in, gets a job, who knows they need medical assistance.
Right.
Right.
So it helps in the hiring process.
I guess it's just relatively more cost to the village, because it's that many more months of the village covering the portion of
For
health
3
insurance.
months.
Yeah. But,
But again, like I said, it helps in the hiring process.
Sure, absolutely.
Impacting new hires.
New hires.
So it's starting,
Effective, is there an effective date, Sylvia?
September 7th.
what is it?
Well,
Effective
it's
immediately?
It's effective immediately because it says there will be no such waiting period hereafter. So that's the equivalent of an effective immediately.
So this is for anyone who is elected or brought on after this date, moving forward?
That would be, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that was my understanding.
Mhm.
To the point, it's not affecting, if I were accepting, and I'm not, village health insurance, it's not affecting me.
Mhm.
I would still, if I had village health insurance, I'd still be paying the $3,000 or $4,000 a month.
Sure.
Is there any reason not to make it effective immediately for all?
No, I think that it clarifies that it's not affecting anyone here.
Well, is it?
It might affect Sylvia, it might affect
Oh, does it?
It
Trustee
does,
Giuliano.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the intention was, and maybe it could be written better, the intention was that if anyone in those titles hereafter, or at this moment, is within the 3-month waiting period, that waiting period no longer applies effective today.
Got it.
It's the waiting period that doesn't apply.
So that's different. So it's not anyone who comes on today or hereafter, it's anybody who's within a waiting period right now
Correct.
as well.
And
Of those titles.
of those titles. Of those titles.
Any other discussion?
Okay.
Okay.
Deputy
Roll call
Mayor?
vote? Mhm.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
But aye.
Trustee Lauts?
Yes.
Trustee Biondo?
Yes.
Trustee Giuliano?
I would vote yes, but I might have to recuse
You should
myself.
recuse yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I'm taking a sip.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. Resolution number 0682123, resolution approving the contract between the Village of Port Jefferson and Charlene Cagle Betts of East End Accounting Services for the provision of village administration and Treasury Department consulting services at a rate of $145 per hour for a maximum of 20 hours per month effective September 16th, 2023, to be expensed equally from line item numbers A, 1325.4, Treasury contractual expense, and A, 1410.4, Village Clerk contractual expenses. Resolution number 0782123, resolution revoking the appointment of Claims Auditor David Carlson.
So, wait, sorry, we're not gonna get to discuss? Oh,
Of course,
just
at any time.
Kept rolling. So there are no more roll call votes. but we
There
can
is not
pause-
another roll call vote. Exactly.
But we can pause to discuss.
Certainly.
Okay. So just as resolution 2 and 3 were connected to each other, looking for, just public clarification on resolution number 6, how that ties into, the current goals of the Treasury Department.
Yes, so Charlene Cagle Betts, her proposal, I think, is in the packet, and her services are described. I'm looking for them. But essentially, what we're asking Charlene to do, who is a veteran administrator in municipal government. She has been a clerk, a treasurer. She has been an administrator and for some of the major municipalities out east. And what she will do is help us really take a deep dive into our Treasury Department and our operations of the village in general, to see where we can become more efficient and effective in our management process, in terms of policies and procedures, in terms of the organizational chart, and where different departments sort of line up and work together, and how they work together. And she'll provide guidance in the preparation of the annual operating and capital budgets. She will advise on creation and implementation of policies and procedures, as I said, review and evaluate system of internal controls, and provide accounting support as needed for the village treasurer. We anticipate her start date to be September 16th, if approved, and we look forward to working with her and having the village benefit from her deep experience in this area. Okay, any other questions about that one?
Nope.
Great.
Resolution number 0782123, resolution revoking the appointment of Claims Auditor David Carlson effective September 7th, 2023. If I may say, we thank him for his years of service to our village, and we also thank him for a very amicable party. We appreciate that.
And so the resolution number 8 is
Tied to,
tied to number 7. because there was a conversation then had with Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, absolutely, and he thanked us, for our diligence in reviewing the claims, and understood that it's simply a question of fresh eyes on the process, on what we do and how we do it, and very much appreciates that, and thanked us profusely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Resolution number 08-82123, resolution approving the contract between the Village of Port Jefferson and Catherine A. Goodwin for the provision of claims auditor services at a rate of $75 per hour, not to exceed 16 hours per month, effective September 7th, 2023. Resolution number 09-82123, resolution approving the request of Recreation Center Manager Renee Lemmerman to ratify the hiring of Julia Parada to teach the youth tennis program from August 9th, 2023 through October 25th, 2023 at a wage rate of $15 per hour. Resolution number 10-82123, resolution authorizing Recreation Center Manager Renee Lemmerman to manage the Port Jefferson Farmers Market located at the Port Jefferson Village Center on behalf of the village effective August 24th, 2023.
And has Renee and Melissa met?
I believe that they are acquainted with each other already, and they realize they'll be working in tandem.
Sorry, by met, had a meeting, just to.
I don't know that yet. I think that would have been premature until this was approved.
Is there something that's concerning with you about
No,
that?
just making sure that, the farmer's market is one of the most beloved features of our village, and making sure that there's not any kind of.
No, so Melissa's not on the agenda today. She's still
No,
going
I
to be
understand.
operating the day-to-day activity at the farmer's market. But Renee will be taking on the administrative process.
And that's largely, if I understood from other conversations, largely in the like winter, springtime, or
Entire year.
the entire year.
Mhm. So inside and outside. The inside farmer's market, I think there was a resolution previously where there was a stipend issued to manage the farmer's market outdoors for $3,500. And then there was an extra fee, I don't know if there was, I haven't seen the resolution, but there was an extra fee for $1,500. And that was issued to the clerk at the time. So that was $5,000 stipend for for managing the farmer's market. And Melissa is getting paid $150 a week to run the week-to-week operation.
Got it.
I think it makes sense since it's at the
Sure,
it's
sure.
at the village center.
Yes.
Renee's the manager of it. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
she has eyes on it, and she manages the people inside and out, and, inside, yeah.
Just making sure she's has what she needs to onboard and keep things rolling.
We will assist her through that, absolutely.
Very good.
Resolution number 11-82123, resolution amending the closing hour of the Village Center building to 8:00 p.m. from Monday through Friday instead of 9:00 p.m. from Monday through Friday. Please note that the weekend hours will remain as 9:00 a.m. through 9:00 p.m.
Question?
Yes.
Why the change?
Nothing good happens after 8 o'clock at the Village Center.
Well, I know, but.
No, that's,
Saturday
in all
night-
serious.
Saturday night is also
Yeah, this was something that when we spoke with the manager of the Village Center, Renee Lemmerman, we discussed, should we close the doors if there's an event any night of the week? Because there's the activity that comes into the building organically while there's an event going on tends to go up to the event and enjoy the event uninvited at times. So, but that was beyond what, she thought was reasonable. So she felt reasonably that an 8 o'clock closing time during the week. And if there's usually an event taking place on a Saturday night or an activity, so we'll see what happens with that.
Now, what's gonna happen with the skating season when that comes in?
I don't believe that's, I'm sorry,
Go
Mary.
ahead.
I don't believe that's affected by these hours. I believe that will be operating during different hours, but we're still in conversation.
And the other The other aspect of it is that we can leave the bathroom doors open on the outside of the village center to access the bathrooms and lock the bathrooms from,
From the inside.
there's no access into the building, but the bathrooms can be accessed outside the building
What hours would those have?
until the closing, until the employee leaves. Until the employees, the night managers leave. So the night managers will leave at 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday, 9 o'clock.
Now, there's some groups that meet, Conservancy, I know the bid, I think there's a couple of other groups that meet. Are they usually, do you know, are they gonna be hindered? Would they be out by 8 o'clock?
Your CCMAC.
CCMAC.
You begin at 6, the CCMAC begins at 6. What time does the Conservancy
Well,
begin?
7. So, I don't know about the
So
bid,
it's
I don't know
the
about the.
locking of the doors. It's not locking people in.
Okay.
It's keeping people.
Okay.
You know, it's locking the doors from the outside in.
So we'll be locked in.
So you won't be locked in.
Night in the village center.
We'll put cots up just in case.
Bring lots of change for the vendors.
Right, yeah. Okay.
So.
I think they take credit cards now.
There you go.
Resolution number 12, 82123, resolution approving the request of Recreation Center Manager Renee Lemmerman to rehire Pat Duhan as a seasonal part-time front desk clerk from 7 o'clock a.m. through 9 o'clock a.m. from Monday through Friday for the Lifeys before and after care program at a wage rate of $18 per hour with a term effective September 7th, 2023 and through June 26th, 2024.
Is any of this cost going to be passed along to the Lifeys before and after care program?
So, no. This is absorbed by the Village Center budget. It's an employee of the Village Center. It's a village employee. There's no
And what-
change to the Lifeys
What
before and after care program at all.
What
There's
time
always
does
been
that
someone
building
there.
open?
The building opens at 9, but the children are allowed in at 7
Sure.
or quarter up.
So essentially, the village is agreeing to incur cost to help facilitate the program.
Yeah, as always, as it has always.
So this isn't sort of the security feature that we're
No.
discussing? Okay.
No.
Resolution number 13, 82123, resolution approving the request of Recreation Center Manager Renee Lemmerman to extend the term of employment of the following seasonal, part-time camp counselors through August 25th, 2023. Lauren Calandriel, Noah Potter, and Sarah Moshe, owing to the timing of the Discover Camp program. Resolution number 14, 82123, resolution approving the request of Pat Sullivan to ratify the hiring of seasonal part-time laborer Matthew Franco at a wage rate of $18 per hour effective August 14th, 2023. Resolution number 15, 82123, resolution authorizing an increase in the annual salary of Recreation Center Manager Renee Lemmerman from $97,837.33 to $102,837.33 effective August 24th, 2023, owing to the assumption of additional duties.
Is this something we could discuss maybe exec?
Well, like the lawyer said, we can discuss anything in exec.
Well, we can't discuss anything.
Well, we can,
We could adjourn.
you know,
We can discuss personnel matters like executive, if there's a motion.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we go into exec to discuss this issue.
do we have a second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution number 16, 82123, resolution approving the discontinuance of the Passport program between the Village of Port Jefferson and Long Island Elite Limousines, Inc., effective August 10th, 2023. Resolution number 17, 82123, resolution approving the event application submitted by the Greater Port Jefferson Chamber of Commerce for the closure of Mill Creek on October 21st, 2023, and October 22nd, 2023, from 11 o'clock a.m. through 5 o'clock p.m. The use of the tennis court on October 21st, 2023, from 6 o'clock p.m. through 8 o'clock p.m. The use of the Village Center ice skating rink area for a straw maze. The use of Harbor Park for a pumpkin patch. The use of the front of the Village Center for a pretzel vendor. And the use of traffic control personnel for the closing of East Main to East Broadway and Main Street to East Main Street on October 21st, 2023 for the costumed dog parade. All events are in conjunction with the October Harvest Fest. Further, as requested by the applicant, a waiver of the requisite application fee is hereby approved.
Couple questions there. First of all, sounds like a ton of fun, and I hope everybody attends. The closure of Mill Creek.
Is that the parking lot?
Is that the parking lot right behind Village Hall here? Surely they're not.
Yeah, that's Mill
I
Creek.
think that's what they're referring to by
Okay.
the noodle place.
Well, the application's here.
Wait, by the noodle place
Oh,
or the one
yes.
behind the
Isn't that
bridge
it?
here?
Isn't it the,
No, Mill
that's the one
Creek
I'm
is-
thinking
Mill
of?
Creek is the
Well, Mill Creek
high
is a physical
school.
body of water, but
Right.
like, is there a parking lot we call Mill
I'm
Creek?
thinking it's-
Mill Creek Road is the
Is the road up
entrance
to the
right
high
by
school.
Ralph's.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
That's Mill Creek Road.
Mill Creek Road.
Yeah,
So
so
they
is
wanna
that
close
what
Mill
they're,
Creek Road.
That's not
oh,
Mariner's Way?
No, yeah.
The road closure is for, yes, it states Mill Creek for vintage trucks for both days. So it would be Mill Creek Road.
Mm,
Guessing.
yeah, it is that back area.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
By the brewery.
It's not,
by the brewery, yeah,
It's-
from Ralph's around
Right.
to the,
I
to
think it's
Chase.
described
The Chase
inaccurately
parking lot,
on their
yeah.
permit request, but I think we know what area they're talking about.
Since they checked it under road closure, yeah.
Yeah,
Google's bringing up Mill Creek Road as the school.
yeah, it's the high school entrance and roadway. But that's not what they're
That's
talking
not what-
about. They're
Okay.
talking about behind the,
By the
Village
brewery,
Way,
yeah.
yeah, by the brewery
Mhm.
back there, yes.
So can we amend that?
Well, that is Mill Creek Road,
Yeah. We seem to have two Mill Creek roads.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
closure of Mill Creek,
Yeah. I'm
All
just,
right.
for,
Given
it's
the-
it's a resolution, just for clarity, I'm not trying to be pedantic,
Yeah.
but just.
we get it. We understand, I understand. We understand what they're asking for. And so, do we take that as,
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Other question, so, October 22nd is, a Sunday, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And then the pumpkin patch is both days in Harborfront Park? And is that going to butt up against the farmer's market? It just says use of Harborfront Park for a pumpkin patch. Unless it's
The
not
pumpkin
Harborfront
patch
Park.
is in the ice skating rink area. It's on the application, the
Okay.
permit. Mhm.
Sorry, just the resolution says Harbor Park.
Ice skating rink area for a straw maze, the use of Harbor Park, the use of, yeah, didn't really, yep.
Well,
No, you're correct. Could be clearer. Because on the application, it says ice skating area for pumpkin straw maze.
Harbor
It
Park.
just says Harbor Park for a
for
pumpkin
pumpkin
patch. Pretzel vendor in front of,
So are they expecting to have Harborfront Park be a large pumpkin patch? Does that have to be closed off? Is it for both days? I just,
there's a meeting coming up if you wanna
Mhm.
attend.
Other questions?
oh no, I mean, but I'm just trying to make sure that the village isn't saying
Valid.
yes to two different activities in the same space.
Valid questions, we can obtain clarification and report back.
So we're gonna hold that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, sounds like a ton of fun. I'm not.
Yeah, good questions.
Not trying to rain, just wanna make sure everything's gonna function. I know that time of year is, oh, and last question, but maybe most importantly, when are the walkways being done?
We don't have dates for that yet.
But it's
But the
sometime in
plan is to
the,
have them before, either before or after.
so either Because there's something we okayed in what, October, like the first weekend in October?
The Blues.
The Blues
Mhm.
Fest?
Mhm.
So,
So there's a good 2 weeks in between.
alright, but this will,
We're not gonna plan it if it can't get done in time for the,
and then it would be done after. I just don't wanna lose sight of that.
we will not lose sight of that.
Very good. Cool. Well, I'll be there in the Strawmies.
Resolution number 82123, resolution confirming the policy that all entities applying for a permit associated with an event application or any facility use are obligated to pay to the Village of Port Jefferson the requisite corresponding application fee. This reinforcement of the policy shall take effect on January 1st, 2024.
Question on that one. Do we have an existing policy?
The policy's on the permit
In other
itself.
words,
We
yeah.
assume so because it's written on the permit itself. And it is one of the main points actually written on the
Right.
permit. So the assumption is that it came from policy. And if not written policy, then definitely past practice policy.
So it would just be a blanket, no matter who it is, nonprofit or village co-sponsored event or,
Yes, it's a $50 application.
Sure.
Exactly. Because it's very difficult to go through and decide either we have no permit fee whatsoever,
Mhm.
because there's so many exceptions, and then others, there's no exceptions to. So we just want to bring forward a consistent and responsible process. And the applications can be complex, as you see.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, and so it's public space, it's public property. It's village-owned and taxpayer-funded, so.
And it, again, if it's a village co-sponsored event, is the applicant, if there's an application being put in by, whether it's the bid, the Chamber of Commerce, whoever it is that something that would be subject?
So there's another policy that we're trying to find, right? I haven't seen it yet, through the village center, that certain village located not-for-profits have access to the village center once a year for a fundraiser. Trying to find that.
Monday through Thursday, I have.
Monday through Thursday?
I'll get a copy of that. I
So
have a copy of that,
that's
Cool.
something,
Yeah.
that's a free event.
Mhm.
And we're trying to determine which not-for-profits are eligible for that.
Right.
So that we're trying to identify. The permit is $50. It's a processing fee. It requires meetings and time and village resources. So this is something that either we say, we represent the taxpayers' funds, right? So either we are not charging or we're charging, because it's too difficult, because technically, if they're requesting space, it is a village-hosted event. It's co-hosted because it's on village property, basically. We're allowing them to come on our property.
I'm speaking of, like, say the dog event, the Port Paws, where the village is listed as a co-sponsor, I
don't think the village would request a permit from the village.
Well, don't know if someone else is requesting on their behalf, but the village is signed on. So, anyway, we can cross bridges if we get to them.
Okay.
Resolution number 1982123, resolution approving the block party application submitted by Corey Kim for the residents to hold a block party on Hoyt Lane from 12 o'clock noon through 9 o'clock p.m. on August 19th, 2023, with a rain date of August 26th, 2023.
Denied.
No.
We're gonna go back in time.
No, we're gonna say no. That came a little late.
Say.
Resolution number 2082123, resolution authorizing the attendance of Municipal Parking Administrator Kevin Wood at the New York State Parking and Transportation Association Annual Conference and Trade Show from October 17th, 2023 through October 19th, 2023 at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, with all applicable meal, lodging, and mileage expenses to be reimbursed in accordance with the official Village of Port Jefferson travel policy.
Only if he can't take his golf clubs.
Yeah.
I'll write that
Kevin,
down.
Kevin always brings back something interesting and keeps us on the up and up with parking stuff. So happy to send him there.
Resolution number 21, 82123, resolution approving the check register and warrants dated August 17th, 2023, as presented by Deputy Treasurer Ferrante, and as approved by Claims Auditor Carlson.
So there were, just a comment on this, there were a few items that the auditor asked to hold until signatures were obtained, department head signatures were obtained, and I was informed by the deputy treasurer that those signatures were all obtained. There was one item that I didn't see a resolution on, but it was the Twilight Dinner, 24/5/21. Twilight Dinner at Port Jefferson Country Club. These are comments. I don't know if it means he approved them or not. So, maybe we hold that until we know the answer to that.
Yes.
And then I hope you all noted that the way that the check register was provided, with details and itemized
Yeah.
payments
I
to the
appreciate that, I
vendors.
like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a bit more cumbersome, but
It gives you more detail.
yes,
Now, are these the warrants that were held from the last meeting too?
correct, with a
Okay.
few extras.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
It is, I guess I can ask this just in reference to sort of the warrants and everything being lumped together in a PDF. I don't know if having them as separate items, if I can make that suggestion to the clerk and for the board to consider.
I mean, the treasurer's office will provide these documents to you separately.
moving forward.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely,
very
and
good.
they'll likely be in a different format,
Very good.
an easier to read format.
Fabulous.
We're working on it.
Probably
Very
in a
good.
landscape format,
Yeah.
Oh, well.
to be specific.
Yes.
That's the format.
Yes,
No,
exactly.
and I know the work that a 60-page document takes to put together, so I'm not, but sometimes being able to click through and see the different items as different PDFs is digestible.
So we have an add-on. Number 22 now reads, resolution approving the attached proposal from GEI Consultants, Inc., P.C., known as GEI, for the provision of professional services related to value engineering in support of the implementation of Phase 2 of the East Beach Bluff Stabilization Project at a cost of $9,200, with the corresponding scope of work to be performed as an additional service to the contract currently in place between GEI and the Village of Port Jefferson for the Phase 1 lower wall construction administration. Okay, so that will become resolution number 22082123. Resolution number 23-82123 is a resolution approving resolution numbers 01 through 22 for the above action items, with the exception of resolution number 15, which
Shouldn't that
requires.
be 06? Because we've already, the first 5 were already approved by,
Stylistic.
okay,
Reaffirmation.
fine.
Resolution numbers 01 through 22, with the exception of resolution number 15.
And we've, trustee Biondo suggested tabling 17, is that something?
The permit
the-
for the
We're holding that,
Oktoberfest?
yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
17.
Did we vote on 7? Did we vote on table?
There was no votes
There was
yet.
no vote
No vote.
to table 17.
Well, this is the vote,
Yeah,
so
no, it's-
the
Okay.
vote will be on all
On
that
all
we
With the
haven't
exception
voted
of
on?
15 and 17.
Correct.
15 and 17.
Anybody have any questions about that GEI?
Yeah,
add-on?
it came in, I was hoping for a conversation about it, just because it came in,
Sure.
today. So
Yeah.
if you wanna
Yep.
maybe give a brief?
Yeah, so, our consultant who is, sort of looking at our, quotes and estimates and, plans and proposals of our engineering projects, took a look at the GEI plan, drawn up for the upper bluff, wall, the upland portion of the East Beach Bluff project, which is not underway yet due to, we are waiting for response from FEMA to see if that, that grant is coming through. But in the meantime, Mr. Corsella looked at the plan and noticed an opportunity to, they call it the value engineering review of the proposed project, which included stabilizing steel beams that would hold up every aspect of the 47-foot wall that's being proposed to be installed in the bluff. And noted that perhaps those beams are not needed around the base of the building itself, potentially destabilizing it. So what GEI is being asked to do is take a look at that project description to see if removal of all those beams would work, number one, and the supposition is that that would still work, and perhaps even make it more stable, versus might disrupt if those beams come in up against the building. And then if that is the case, those beams are pretty hefty price per beam, at the tune of like $18,000 each. And it's in quite a few beams, and it could end up saving us $300,000 on the project.
This is the upper wall.
The upland wall. Mhm.
Gotcha. And
Mhm.
how much would be covered by FEMA? Just, is there a match there?
No, this is not a FEMA grant application. This is GEI doing the work.
I know it's not the grant
to
application,
see.
but we've
So the
been-
FEMA project, if FEMA approves the grant for that project, it would be a 75% coverage of
Got
the
it.
cost of that grant, of that project,
So this fund could potentially save us $300,000.
minus about $9,000, if
Right.
that's what it costs. So it's up not to exceed $9,200?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Really
So
smart.
spending
Yeah,
a few thousand to
It's a
save
no-brainer.
a few
Yeah,
hundred thousand.
absolutely.
So may we have a motion, please, to accept the action items with the exception of numbers 15 and 17?
Motion.
Go ahead.
Motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, on to the next portion of our agenda, board reports. Kind of anticlimactic, but. Mr. Moran, do you have any updates that you'd like to bring
The one
us?
update I can give in public is we have a meeting scheduled this Thursday with Verizon in reference to their staging of equipment at the golf course with what they believe some alleged approval from,
PSCG or Asplund?
yes,
Asplund.
I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
Asplund.
Okay,
And through PSCG, we're working with the governmental outreach at PSCG, who put us in touch with the right people at Asplund, and we're gonna meet on Thursday to discuss reimbursement for their staging without the necessary authority. Other than that, I have nothing else to report in
Thank you.
this session.
okay. Mr. Harris, Director of Building and Planning and Village Prosecutor, we've asked him to update us on an email that we received from a village merchant in the CO district.
Thanks.
That conversation that took place prior to the new administration taking shape.
Good evening. Before we speak about this, I recommend this matter be discussed in executive session pursuant to the open meetings law, since this involves the possible acquisition of property. That normally goes into executive session in order to maintain the bargaining position of the village.
Very good. That would be appropriate.
Okay. All right. I was looking forward to that.
You're still gonna get it.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so just wanted to provide a brief update on a couple of the items I've been pursuing. Myself, Trustee Laux, was on the email chain, and Tom Natola and Pat Sullivan received an update from Elizabeth Hornstein, who is our Long Island Sound Study Sustainable and Resilient Communities Extension Professional through New York Sea Grant. Essentially, she has been hired by Sea Grant in order to help facilitate climate resilience efforts in communities like ours. So she is one of my municipal best friends as far as reaching out for questions about funding opportunities, facilitating meetings with other agencies to see what we hear our goals in the village, how they can find grant funding and also be helped along. So Ms. Hornstein is working to set up a meeting with the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation to clarify and provide more information on potential funding for reuse of sewer treatment plant effluent on golf courses. So she's looking into that. Discussing water reuse with the Long Island Commission for Aquifer Protection, which is another great group who already has a lot of momentum going in this regard. CTUC Environmental Association has their water reuse roadmap and action plan. And so that's another group that we've had a conversation with about this and are very excited to help further looking into the feasibility of this as much as possible. Ms. Hornstein is writing to CTUC, other elected officials, to urge them to write to the governor or attend the Environmental Bond Act Fund listening tour. I myself will be attending the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act listening tour in Brentwood on Thursday, the 24th, so later this week. It's from 1 to 3 p.m. I believe anyone's invited to attend this. You just RSVP online, and it's the governor and many other New York State agents will be there, and they're looking to listen to anyone from community members, elected officials, nonprofits, folks who are stakeholders and interested in what the $4.2 billion that was passed by New York State voters can be used for. What are those funds specifically going to go towards? And so I'll be advocating for effluent water reuse to be listed as an acceptable use because if we take, that would be a large, fiscally enormous project, and so if we can get a slice of that $4.2 billion, then all the better. So, and I'll also be really interested to hear what other folks are speaking about and bring that back to our community. She also provided us some pointed out a couple of grants that could be good when they are re-released in 2024 to look into, and I'll be looping in Nicole Christian, our grant administrator, for these conversations. The other continuing effort is with the Department of State Climate Resilience Plan. There's a discussion to be had about priorities. I'm still working with Companion Schwarting, myself as the chair of the Climate Action Plan resident committee that's been put together to oversee this group, are going to be bringing to them and bringing to this board a list of different priorities to help choose 3 top priorities for the village to focus on as far as looking into engineering for, engineering and further planning for those efforts. In brief, they include looking into the harborfront parking lot with alongside Brookhaven Township, looking into the Mill Creek Walkway and Old Mill Creek Pond, daylighting the culvert, looking into bioswales and rain gardens on village land and parking lots, and the steep streets throughout Port Jefferson, and capturing the water in place before it runs down to the bottom of our little bowl here. So.
And the softballs.
And the softballs. I mean, I love our Mill Creek steward has categorized like how, what shape, like what grade they all get. I don't know. There's definitely a grade worse than B- for the softballs.
Okay.
So, and then also something that we can discuss internally is looking at storm drain cleanouts and making a schedule of that. I know that's something that we've discussed previously, working with our DPW. To make sure that the infrastructure we do have in place is being maintained regularly, so that when we move forward with efforts, if we can move forward on cleaning out the culvert and all that sediment, we want to make sure that there's as little sediment continuing to refill it as possible. So all that, and then on finally scheduled Monday, August 28th, I have a meeting with Town of Brookhaven and different stakeholders, including this members of the Silcott Nation, to look into the viability of sugar kelp farming in Port Jefferson Harbor here. It's an off-season use of the harbor. It starts usually around November after boaters have finished with their season, and then it gets harvested around April, May, which is when boats are really starting to go in. We have a short history of this being, there was a grant that funded testing this in the harbor. And it went well. So it's a great way to purify the water, remove nitrogen, 'cause that's, that helps feed the sugar kelp, and they're a neat project. It's all around. So we're hoping to update more at the next meeting. That's my report.
Thank you. Trustee Biondo.
We took about a two-hour tour. 2 or 3 hour would be on the SS Minnow.
Right.
Yeah.
Of the National Grid Power Plant. The plant is the sister plant to the plant in Island Park. And essentially, it's a 60-plus-year-old plant. We saw the retired generators, we saw the current generators, we saw the peaker plant, which essentially are 2 747 jet engines mounted in the back there. I can tell you from my time at LIPA that our plant only runs 3 or 4% a year, but while we were there, they were powering it up, and the New York Independent System Operator had called for more power, so even the peakers were going to be fired up. So it's still running, thank God. I will say that they showed us all of their safety equipment and how they operate, and they coordinate with the Port Jefferson Fire Department in case there's anything that happens at the plant. They're all about being good neighbors. They instruct their employees to drive at a reasonable rate of speed on Beach Road there, along with all that other traffic that goes up in there, and to be as quiet as possible. All in all, I think we've opened the door to a good relationship with them, and look forward to possibly going back. There was more to see, but we were pressed for time.
It's so impressive in that building. The floors are so clean.
Yeah.
It's like you could eat off of them. It's so clean. And
For
they
a
have
60-plus-year-old building,
Yeah.
it was
sparkle.
yeah.
They have their own emergency response, emergency responders trained and uniformed in there. It's self-sustaining. It's
And
incredible.
the view is the best in the village
Yeah.
from the top.
To be sneezed at.
Yeah, we were gonna
Yeah.
say, there's like penthouse suites in
Yes.
there.
And the stacks look much, much bigger when you're right up next to
Oh,
them.
gosh.
I mean, I knew they were tall. It's 42 stories, those stacks.
And the birds that nest up
There's
there,
ospreys up in there.
and falcons, and it's a whole, it's its own little world kind of thing. It's impressive. Trustee Giuliano.
And if you remember at our first meeting, I had given the attorney, I want to hand this out to the board, I felt it give copies to the board. And I'm just looking for permission, if maybe I can work with the attorney to work on a code change. Briefly, when a developer is looking to build within the village, oftentimes they'll go to the IDA. The IDA will give them tax relief, but what I'm proposing is that any tax relief that is given to the developer does not bring it down to zero. It brings it down to whatever they're paying in taxes presently, and then working up from there. So I want to try to get this wording or similar wording, depending on what the attorney suggests, into the code, so that the village will be made whole. So we won't, if the IDA gives pilot monies out, or gives pilot exemptions out, that the village will be, will start at ground zero. We won't be getting zero. We'll be starting at the money that we're collecting now.
Are there examples of what other municipalities are doing? That
Actually, this is almost word for word from what Village of Westbury has, when they put this into their codes.
And so it would be interesting to see the outcomes of that.
Yeah,
that approach.
Yeah, working with Westbury, they had a couple developers came in and they had no problem with it. The problem with the IDA is the IDA meets with the developer. The village has no say in it. That we don't even have a seat at the table. So the IDA just comes in and says, okay, fine, you don't have to pay any taxes for the next 10 years, 50 years,
And if you ever notice, when they announce
whatever.
their deals, they never put in the amount. They never do. You have to go to the official documents to find out what the amount is. They announce the deal, how it's wonderful. They never say how much it's for.
So that's my question. If the village doesn't have a seat at the table, at what point is this applicable? Like, at what point can the village apply?
Well,
these
if the
documents?
IDA says, if the IDA says, all right, you have a 10-year, we can grant you tax relief for 10 years. Instead of starting year one not paying zero, year one they will pay whatever they're paying to the village now.
So the IDA respects this?
Yeah, they have in Nassau County.
Just, I always got the impression, exactly as you said, was that the village is not in that conversation, and so, I'm just not sure where.
Maybe we could slide into their DMs.
Look at you, Drew.
To use the vernacular of the.
What's his name?
Sylvia, how do you feel about sliding into the IDA's DMs? But yeah, so I guess, Bob, in your process, pre-DMs, where does this, is this something that's the IDA is made aware of? Does the village make the developer aware of?
The village makes the developer aware of it, yes.
And so the developer then willfully takes it to those negotiations and says, I can't develop in the village unless we have this as part of the deal?
The village, they would come to the village and ask permission, and then the village would say, yes, you have permission to develop based on this code change.
And here's our negotiation.
So it would be
right.
It would be part of planning board.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Where exactly it fits into the code,
We'll figure that out if the board's inclined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean it sounds great. I'm just looking at the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
If they don't like the rate, they move on.
Right.
Sure. No, I'm to be clear, I'm not opposing this at all. I'm just if mechanically it can be put into
Point
place.
to procedure, yeah.
Then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be in
Right.
touch.
Okay, thank you. That'd be great. Brief report about the parks. Going a little bit along with what you were talking about, Rebecca. Erland Park netting, Dave is going to be putting netting up to keep the softballs from going into the creek.
What is Bob going to do with this time? No, but Bob, not you, Bob.
Right.
Mr. Larrabee, our
Right.
Mill Creek steward.
What's the status of that?
It's been ordered. It's estimated to be delivered anywhere between September 4th and September 8th. Once delivered, it'll be put up by the parks as soon as it's delivered. And the quote to put it up was $7,800, but Parks is going to install it themselves, saving about, or it's gonna be installing themselves for about $1,600, so it's.
Great.
We'll be getting a savings from Park doing that work. Also, they repaired a hole in the fence over at Roosevelt Park, and now Roosevelt Park has been discussed a lot lately. That apparently there's a hole in the fence that was constantly being cut, so they replaced the hole with a gate so that if people are going to use it, at least they will be closing the gate, and then if there's anybody that, animals or, loose dogs or whatever, will but not be running through the hole down onto Dark Hollow Road.
They were gonna say the animals could use the gate.
No, preventing from the dogs from running around.
And this was the one facing Dark Hollow?
Dark
Going
Hollow,
down that little,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So they got a quote, Dave got a quote for $5,500, but they did it for $400, so again, a little savings for the village.
Big savings.
DBW, they're working on road repair, road cleanup, the usual summertime items. They moved the welcome sign down the Highlands Boulevard in Columbia. We had gotten a complaint from somebody that the plantings were blocking the welcome to Port Jefferson sign. So instead of removing the plantings, they just moved the sign in front of it. So they have better visibility of that sign. As far as the Conservancy, at the next meeting, we'd like to invite architect Andrew Thomas to review with the board, this board, the proposed roof for the stage at the Harborfront Park. The Conservancy has identified that as a main area that they want to raise funds for, and this is a main project that they thought would be beneficial to the village. So.
I would like to inquire with our ethics attorney, even though, so full disclosure, architect Andrew Thomas is my husband, and he will not be taking any payment. He will be volunteering his time for the Conservancy, but I still want to make sure that I can be involved in those discussions or not.
So, the Down and Dirty Boat Build was this weekend, down at Harborfront Park with LISAC.
Right.
And they are also interested in working with the Conservancy on the whaleboat build project. So that's another aspect that I hope we can talk about.
Good.
Because their funding is running low for that whaleboat build project. And fundraising arms are not extensive there.
Right. Good. Just a couple of dates to remember for the from the Conservancy. Mustang Car Show is September 12th. Hill Climb is September 23rd, and Harvest Fest, which we already discussed, October 21st and 22nd. And that's my report.
Thank you. Trustee Laux.
Is my light blinking for no reason?
I got you.
You got me? Okay, a report from the Recreation Department. We had our annual village golf outing this past Thursday. We had 82 participants, of which mostly were non-members of the country club. We ran the barbecue from 11 o'clock in the morning until about 6 in the afternoon. We cooked dogs and burgers all day long. There were plenty of salads, desserts, and beverages to make everyone happy. This outing included a round of golf with a cart, and all of the above for a fee of $75. If you missed it, you need to plan on attending next year, because this was a great day and a good opportunity for you to see your own golf course. Some more news: the Men's Adult Softball League will begin in September and will run through November. Sign-ups are taking place right now. You can go through our website, or you can call Village Center. The website is portjeff.com, or you can call the center at 631-473-4778. Summer is quickly closing. I'd like to report that the Recreation Department had 168 youngsters enrolled in their summer camps this year. Of that number, 109 were village residents. The department is still offering swim lessons over at West Beach. And for the first time, the Recreation Department is now offering some free classes for seniors. Those classes are going to begin on September 19th. Again, to register, you have to go to our web. Some of the programs that we're offering are gentle chair exercises, a book club, some pencil drawing, knitting, and crocheting. You can register for those also online. The pickleball and tennis programs are still very healthy. They're running outdoors right now, and they're going to stay outdoors as long as weather permits. Once the weather changes, we do have indoor facilities up at the Scraggy Hill. We are working on obtaining some more facilities through the school district. Both of the beaches will maintain lifeguards through and including Labor Day. The beaches themselves will remain open, however, you'll have no guards, so if you're going to swim, please be safe up there. On behalf of the Recreation Department and myself, I'd like you all to have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Just a couple of updates for me. I spoke today with Sarah Lansdale of the Suffolk County Planning Commission about, she gave basically the village a report about the Lawrence Aviation property and the land use up there, the historic settlement agreement between organizations, which was brokered by Suffolk County Land Bank Board, which ultimately owns title to the Lawrence Aviation property and is in the process of trying to, for lack of a better word, I'll use air quotes, divvy it out to entities that are interested in investing in that area to use it for specific reasons. One reason is they're looking at a 5 megawatt solar development. They were looking at other elements that would also include potentially moving the railroad yard further west down by onto the Lawrence Aviation property. So in addition to this, we talked a little bit about the survey they're doing on the electrification opportunities for the Port Jefferson railway station. And so we've been promoting this survey online through our social media handles, and I've seen signs up in storefronts as well through QR codes. You can participate. Potential for getting a $25 Amazon card. Who wouldn't do that? But the point is that apparently a lot of people are very interested in taking the survey. So they've registered over 2,500 responses so far, and that's huge. So they do attribute some of that success to Port Jeff's support of that survey and our promotion of that survey on our social media handles.
So just to be clear, I don't know. So this is a survey regarding the Port Jefferson line, and so residents would be able to advocate,
Correct.
in their own survey responses for what they might like to see in the future, whether it's, this proposition to perhaps move the rail yard to
It's
the west.
electrification.
It's,
Electrification.
Right.
electrification.
Yeah.
It's, I haven't taken the survey
I
myself.
took the survey a couple of days ago. It was fairly quick, and it's very straightforward, and it's
All about electrification,
all encompassing.
right?
It's all
Yeah.
about electrification.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I encourage, it's posted on our website on the homepage on one of the bullets. It's not on the carousel, and it's not one of the features, it's just one of the bullets. So it gives you access directly to that survey. And then another highlight, sort of connected to the county as well, is the clerk and I met with the leadership from the Suffolk County 6th Precinct, who came to the village, to Joe Candoff and Todd Barone came to the village, met with us. We talked about our relationship together with the Suffolk County Police and our code enforcement folks team, and how that communication and activity goes back and forth, and They're very happy with the relationship they reported, and we're working on ways to really, for our mutual benefit of residents and shop owners, merchants, get a better understanding of when to call 911, when to call 852 cops, and when to call code. So either way, code's gonna respond. So, but if you don't call 911 or 852 cops, you won't get initial response from potentially the right agency. So it's really like triage. We look at it like a triage, like a medical triage. Do you go to a level 1 trauma center? Do you go to a walk-in clinic? Or do you go to your community hospital or your physician's office? It's sort of like, that's a loose translation for the triage, but that's how we're trying to develop that relationship a little bit better. And then the deputy chief inspector actually helped a woman who was coming in to visit Fort Jeff with her parking meter. She was a damsel in distress, and he was, you know, in an officer in uniform walked up, how can we help you, you know, and he actually helped her with her parking meter access. So that was one of the highlights. But we also brought them to the village center, Stan, and they met with Renee and gave Renee some resources and Alex, the folks who work in the village center, gave them resources that they were not aware of before about how to respond when they're seeing issues that make people feel unsafe and vulnerable. So that was very, very helpful. We ran into Kevin Wood, who was parked on the curb, and they issued him a summons. Just kidding. He got away with it.
You talked about cameras.
Pardon me?
You talked about the camera connections.
Yes, and Kevin points out that we talked about the relationship between the village cameras and accessing to the crime center, that the crime center having access to our village, several of our cameras located throughout the village, to their crime center. So all in all, a really good visit, very positive, and we look forward to working with them in the future. Oh, one other thing to make public, and that is there's been some notice of graffiti or graffiti markings on public property. If anyone sees something, take a picture. Don't get it cleaned off immediately, because the police have a unit that addresses graffiti, and sometimes these drawings are evidence for
Tags.
getting them. It could be tags, it could just be someone that always just wants to make art or whatever. But take the picture, report it, and send it in to code. And code will get it over to the right person at the 6th precinct, who will investigate and respond. And then it can get cleaned up. But if you clean it up before it's reported, you're destroying kind of evidence that's going to help maybe capture a bad guy. And that is my report. Yeah, so do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Can I just make one more brief announcement? The numbers of COVID cases I've heard in the village from village residents who are, as well as throughout the county, in the state, nationally, it's a slight uptick. It's not, anything to be very alarmed about, but I just wanted to wish anyone who is ill or knows someone who's ill well wishes, and to please remember that it's still very treatable if you take care of yourself, going through the proper medical care and getting yourself well again.
So we have resolution number 24-82123 to enter into executive session at 8:31 p.m.
To discuss a personnel item and
A personnel item?
A possible land acquisition.
land acquisition.
And litigation update.
Okay. And litigation update.
And we're going to come back after. Right?
Yes, to adjourn, yeah,
Right.
to.
We have to vote,
May we have a motion?
potentially.
We may, yes,
Right.
on numbers 15.
Right.
I'll motion?
So we need a motion to go into exec, right?
I'll motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You wanna go downstairs? Or stay up here with the
Resolution number 25-82123 was a resolution to close the executive session meeting at 9:17 PM and reopen the regular meeting. Motion was made by trustee Laux and seconded by trustee Biondo, and all were in favor. We are now at resolution number 26-82123, which is a resolution adjourning the August 21st, 2023 business meeting of the Village of Port Jefferson Board of Trustees and further approving.
No, we have to approve.
We have to go back.
And further approving
Oh.
resolution number 15-82123.
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
And I
Or
would
adjourned.
further make a motion to adjourn.
We have
Just
second?
We just did
Apparently
that.
we just
Was
did
it
it
double
two in
motion?
one.
We just did that.
We did it 2 in 1.
Was it two scoops?
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Never had one of those before. There you go.
Thank you.
Just, sweet.
Now, you people complain about